Imagine this. You wake up one day and you're the boss of a booming dark web empire. Drugs, weapons, no one bats an eye anymore. Just then, a message pops up. Can I sell human organs on your site? And without flinching, he says yes. Just like that. So, why did he agree? What kind of a mind says yes to that in seconds? And what price did he pay for it? Let's find out. Ross Orbit was no criminal, at least not at first. Born in Texas in 1984, he was a bright, charismatic student, a lover of physics, chess and economics. But academia didn't fulfill him. What did inspire him was libertarian philosophy, particularly Austrian economics and thinkers like Ludwig von Mises and Ron Paul. There was this one business idea that interested Ross from time to time. It was about an online site that had the authority to sell anything without any limitations. After some research, he stumbled upon Tor, the dark web, which allowed users to do anything in the shadows without the fear of government. But there was no payment modes that could fuel his idea. Since whatever existed back then was easily traceable, he just shelved this idea. But on summer 2010, Ross came across Bitcoin, a completely untraceable way of payment. This was perfect for his business, and so he began to work on his website. 2011. Using skills he had taught himself in coding and cryptography, he launched something radical, a dark web marketplace where users could buy and sell anything anonymously using Bitcoin. Its name, the Silk Road. The first product that got listed on the site was magic mushrooms, which Ross grew himself in a warehouse. Right now, he wanted people to know the existence of Silk Road, so he started to rob the name Silk Road on multiple platforms to get people intrigued. And it worked. Orders started coming in. In initial stages, he worked twice every week to take care of the orders. But beyond his expectations, orders came pouring in and Ross had to work every day to keep up with the orders. Few more days later, other people started listing and selling their own products on Silk Road and his site grew larger. 6.23%. That's the commission Ross took from all trades on Silk Road. As more and more people started using Silk Road, he added the rating system which helped buyers buy better shit and sellers gain more popularity. And in just few months, Ross made hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ross was very secretive of the whole thing, but still shared this secret with his girlfriend at the time, Julia. Just like the popularity of the site grew larger, people's awareness of it grew larger as well. News and media started spreading awareness of Silk Road, but it actually served as a well-paid off ad campaign, and as a result, the number of users grew larger in population. But it also brought in the attention of FBI, DEA, and the IRS. As users and sellers grew, money came in pouring, but also along with all these, the Silk Road site had many problems, and Ross was the only one who was catering to thousands of users. And as a result, he had to work round the clock every day. There was a person named Variety Jones who helped Ross occasionally with the problems regarding the site. And as days went by, both became close and they began to text each other almost every day. They shared a special bond and Ross viewed him as a special coach. Variety Jones also advised him that what we do fall under drug kingpin laws, which could fetch death penalty or life at minimum. And so Variety Jones came up with an idea. Both of them were fans of the movie called The Princess Bride, and in that movie there's a character named Dread Pirate Roberts. In the movie, this name has been passed down to generations, meaning nobody is the sole owner, just a successor. Variety Jones recommended him to change his name from admin to Dread Pirate Roberts. Ross liked the idea, because if caught, all the charges can't be pinned on him alone. By the end of the second year, Silk Road had more than 1 million users and Ross was worth tens of millions of dollars. Now for some unreal facts that actually happened. 1. There was a government agent who was active on Silk Road selling information about the case to Ross. The agent was Carl Foss, and he had received around $750,000 too. Curtis Green was an employee of the Silk Road, and one day he was caught for illegal possession of coke. Ross didn't know about it and was confused as he had gone silent all of a sudden. And this is when he noticed that Curtis had stolen $350,000. Since Curtis was a site moderator, he had access to doing so. But it wasn't actually Curtis who stole the money. It was another corrupt agent who stole the money. Sean Bridges arrested Curtis in possession of the coke and also got access to his computer. And so he logged into his account having moderator privileges and stole the money. But Ross had no idea. And he did hire someone to go after Curtis to beat him up and teach him a little lesson. But on discussing the matter with his coach, Variety Jones, he told Ross to kill Curtis so that it sends a message to other Silk Road employees to never cross him again. Ross gave it some thought, but caved in and put out a request. The one who took the request was Carl Force again, the corrupt agent I mentioned earlier. He wanted $40,000 up front and $40,000 when the job is done. Carl Force knew what had happened to Curtis, and he staged Curtis's death and shared photos of his dead body, but in fact, Curtis wasn't dead. Carl Force got paid in full in no time, as Ross didn't know what had actually happened. At first, Ross was disturbed looking at the photos of a dead body, but later thought it was necessary. As time went by, he ordered 5 more hits on other people who had crossed him. Ordering hits on people had become normal. But fortunately for Ross, none of these hits were carried out. All of them were staged by fake hitmen just to extort money from Ross. Multiple agencies were working tirelessly to catch Dreadpire Roberts, like the FBI, DEA, and even the IRS. Then there's Gary from the IRS. He thought whoever started it somehow had to bring it to the attention of the public by being in the public. So he started to search for early mention of Silk Road, and there was a hit. Someone called Altoid mentioned the name in a website called Shroomery, and so he searched the other posts by Altoid and he struck gold. Altoid mentioned Silk Road on a Bitcoin website. On digging further, he found that Altoid had mentioned about Silk Road on various websites in just span a few days. And on one post, he had posted a job offer for his Bitcoin project in which he had mentioned his personal email ID, rossalbrecht@gmail.com. Gary told about this to the FBI, but was dismissed saying there is no concrete evidence. Gary later found Ross's YouTube channel where he talks about libertarianism. On his LinkedIn, Gary found anti-government posts. They also found a coding question related to Tor on Stack Overflow posted by Ross Albrecht, but later changed his name to Frosty. Gary was convinced that he is their guy. On the other hand, FBI found the IP address of the server that Silk Road was hosted on, which traced back to Iceland and infiltrated the Silk Road server. Now that they have infiltrated the server, they had access to a lot of information like the login time of users. And while investigating the recent login of the admin, it happened in a cafe in San Francisco. Even after having this access to information, they didn't have enough to pin anyone. Gary then later explained what he had found, which was dismissed as I mentioned earlier. Then later, when he explained about him changing his name to Frosty in Stack Overflow, they had their breakthrough, as the server and computer in Iceland was also named Frosty. On investigating the location of the server login address and Ross Albrecht's address, it matched. Both showed a cafe in San Francisco. The FBI, DEA, and IRS knew they have their guy. The FBI had few undercover agents shadowing Ross at all times, further confirming their conclusion. You might be wondering, why haven't they caught him yet? Guns blazing. They had to capture him while his computer was logged in. If they did a mistake and gave Ross time to close his laptop, then he might be able to erase his tracks, and all of this would have been for nothing. On October 1st, 2013, He went to San Francisco Public Library, where he found a clean spot for himself. The place was secured by agents. What they did was actually brilliant. Two agents started to argue right behind Ross as if they were a couple fighting, and one of them swore loudly, making Ross turn around instinctively. That split second was all they needed, as the agent swooped the laptop from the table and the other agents pinned him on the table. The laptop had a detailed diary on how he ran Silk Road, which helped to convict him of his wrongdoings. Ross pled not guilty. Although he admitted for starting Silk Road, he claimed that he had done it as a part of social experiment and not with the purpose of making money. Later, he sold the site to Dread Pirate Roberts, and now he is being framed. But all the evidence are stacked against him, and all his claims were proven false. Ross was proven guilty and was given 2 life sentences and additional 40 years without parole. In short, spent the rest of his life in prison. For 10 long years, Ross Ulbricht lived behind bars. Not just locked up, but locked away from the world he helped change. A digital revolutionary, imprisoned by the very system he tried to escape. But then, something no one expected happened. On January 21st, 2025, President Donald Trump granted Ross Ulbricht a full and unconditional pardon. Why? That's still a mystery. No one knows exactly what Trump is cooking, but one thing is clear. Ross Ulbricht walks free again. And whether you see him as a visionary, a criminal, or a scapegoat, the story of Silk Road isn't over.
Comment down below what you liked, what you disliked. This is Scam Script. See you in the next one.